everyone. My name is Brianna, and this is the Mom and It's Not a podcast. As a recent expat, I thought it would be pretty incredible to get other people's opinions about how they ended up in the same city or a different city as an immigrant. So today I have a dear friend with me who has agreed to share her journey to Valencia. This is Rui. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited. I know some of what you'll say, but I'm going to be very surprised about some other things. Let's just launch in right into like the good questions. Like, how was your journey to motherhood?
Well, it's kind of bittersweet, because I had to kind of switch gears from all about me to all about this little tiny human. But fortunately, I had a really great pregnancy. I have fond memories of the pregnancy. No morning sickness. I was practicing yoga all the way through. I got to take the last 2.5 months off, which I think it's so important that you don't get in the States. Yeah, I have very fond memories of pregnancy and birth. I think there's a reason why you don't store memory of pain, because otherwise mothers wouldn't have multiple children, right? But my husband, he was saying that he could hear me screaming through like 2 metal doors. I wasn't allowed to have an epidural. I was actually going to change doctors because of this, because, growing up, especially in the States, you just get the epidural. That's just what people do. And he's like, oh, no, we don't do that here. He's like, we don't do that here. The most important thing is that the baby and the mother is healthy. And I'm like, it's my body. It's my choice. I was going to change hospitals, but I had the baby in Taiwan, but this doctor was pretty well known. And I was like, okay. So I spoke with friends, and one of my friends, Yana, introduced me to hypnobirthing. And I was like, what is this bullshit? I'm like, all right, if she can do it, I can do it. She had 3 kids. She's tiny, like tiny frame. She had 3 kids, and she did the first one with an epidural and then the last 2 without. So I started with the hypnotherapy, the hypnobirthing. And apart from the screaming and no epidural and being in a wheelchair for a week after, I mean, we have a beautiful, healthy boy. And being in Taiwan was really great because they treat mothers like queens. And my parents treated me to this 1-month sitting. It's in Chinese, it's called yuezi. It's very common for Chinese people to do this 1-month sitting. And I think a lot of Westerners think that, oh, is it that thing where you can't shower? And, they have this like preconceived notion. And I also had my notions before. I'm like, wouldn't you be bored? Leave the center. But honestly, it was the most, I wish everyone could go through that,
Yeah.
I wish every mother, especially new mother, can have that experience, because you don't know what the fuck you're getting into. You're in the hospital for 2 days, and then you get sent home with this little alien. You don't know what the fuck it wants. I mean, it was such a nice experience until my husband stole my thunder. He came in with like this neck brace, and they pulled him a hospital bed too. I actually have pictures of it. But yeah, they come and they prepare you food like 8 times a day. So you're super well fed. I had abundance of breast milk, which I know is really difficult for a lot of moms. If I had any questions, I could call. I had a nurse 24/7 on call. Many Chinese people, I don't agree with this, but they can have the nurses look after the baby and only bring it up when it's time for feeding. So you actually can get the rest. I didn't choose that option. And so I maybe didn't reap the benefits of getting enough rest, because they say when the baby sleeps, you should sleep. And I didn't take that advice, because when the baby was sleeping, I was hanging out with my husband because he was in Taiwan on a visa and he only had, a few days there. So I was quite exhausted. He cleaned my poop pan because without the epidural, and I was like, "Ugh." And I like tore like from, stage 4. I don't know if you know, but basically the worst tear you can have from like your pussy to like your butthole. And so they had to stitch me up. I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair. I thought like without an epidural, it's supposed to be better.
To talk about how gnarly those tears can be, you know? Like that's like
I didn't even see down there, but my husband says it looks normal down there. So besides, you know, when we're at training and doing jumping jacks and I want to pee on myself, but
oh my goodness. Your birth experience would have differed in the United States.
oh, I think it probably would have been, I'm going to quote you, a bloody mess. I mean, from what I hear, it's not that great in the States,
Sure.
you
Depends on
know?
where you go, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm pretty happy that I GTFO'd.
Yeah. Get the fuck out. Yeah. Absolutely. So when did you go into labor naturally?
Yeah, so I was in Taiwan the last 2.5 months, and then my husband Milo, she came, and I think he only had like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. His visa was for 3 weeks, and the due date was March 5th. And I was like, oh no, what if it comes early and then he misses the, you know, the birthing, or what if he comes late? Like, I don't know. Anyways, Luca was 1 day late, so my water broke naturally in the middle of the night. So it was the 6th. By then, 4 a.m. You don't know what it feels like. You don't, I mean, yeah, I was a little bit like anxious, you know, and I mean, but it's very clear my water broke. I heard like a pop, pop.
And
Yeah. And so we rushed to the hospital. We had our to-go bag packed already. Woke my parents up, and yeah, they didn't let me eat anything or like walk around. So I actually really wanted to have like a water birth or something, but they're like, you know, this hospital, they're very like traditional. I couldn't walk around. I couldn't like be on all fours. You know, they say,
oh yeah.
which I was kind of annoyed about. So talk about like things that was frustrating and things that were good. In general, I had a great pregnancy and birthing. But yeah, I wasn't allowed. I had to just like lay in a room and wait for the dilation.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't allowed to eat because they thought I might need to have an emergency C-section, which I didn't. So I wasn't able to eat or drink in case you know, they'd need to put me under or whatever, or epidural. And I had to just lay there. So in the beginning it was all good, and then I think I was in labor for like 10 hours. They didn't have birth and give birth until the following afternoon, 4:30, something like that.
Oh, interesting. That's
And the
almost
last 2 hours
4:44.
was,
Yeah, that's the best part. That's like when you held Luca for the first time.
it was really weird because it was just like a concept, right? When
Oh
he's
yeah.
in the belly. And now in hindsight, I'm like, man, he was so active, like kicking me. And, you know, I was doing also headstands at the time and yoga practice. But yeah, I actually didn't see him come out. So, you know, finally he came out and I was just so relieved.
Mm-hmm.
And Milish was in the room and he told me this later. He thought like Luca was not okay because I guess they come out blue.
Yeah, they can, yeah.
And then he was like, holy shit, that's a Cheng. The Asian genes are strong. And then they put him on my, oh, that's another thing I was annoyed because I was like, can you like stall a little bit cutting the umbilical cord?
Yeah.
Blah, 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 all that stuff. They're like, no, we can keep it for like whatever. So I basically didn't have a choice in the matter, which was a little bit frustrating. But they put him here on my chest, and I was like, I think that initial photo was
Yeah.
like, it's like an alien.
It's this thing.
But then he started like looking for, and I was like, oh my God. And it was like instant. It was instant. It's just nature, you know, it's like
Yeah.
natural, beautiful thing.
That's super cool. That's it. It is interesting that they wouldn't let you do certain things, especially like in a different. I'm always interested to hear how it goes in different countries when it comes to birth, because we do have such a regimented program in the U.S. But equally, like hospitals have become more open. Now they charge you for it. A lot of hospitals have come more open to like the delayed cord clamping, the skin to skin, and all that kind of stuff. But it is quite fascinating how, like, there's still so much misinformation about, the best place for a woman is to be like lying flat on her back while she tries to literally shoot something out of the hole the size of like, a quarter at best. So it's pretty fascinating to me.
Now, I honestly think, because I don't know how it is in the States, but I was on like a stretcher with like two things to hold on the side.
Yeah.
And I don't know for what reason, when I had the contractions, I would lift my pelvis.
Oh,
It was natural instinct. And I think because of that was why I was in a wheelchair. I was
that
causing
in
so
your
much
chair.
strain. Yeah,
Chair.
yeah.
Like a walk.
Sure. But
But
I
like
wonder how it would have gone differently if I was able to do it on all fours, or I don't know.
I also think that
Maybe they
doctors
didn't.
like, yeah, sorry. No, all good. Sometimes I think doctors have a way they like to do it, you know what I mean? As opposed
Wait.
to what's best for the mom. And especially a first time mom when you're being born as a mother, as I like to say, you don't really know what to ask for. It's like you don't know what you need to know until you're like, oh,
Oh, I asked for it. And he
yeah,
was
I
like,
wouldn't
no.
have. I didn't even know to ask for that. In retrospect, I wish I could have been standing and squatting. Would have been great.
I think if you're like on all fours, maybe like more possibility to projectile poo on the doctor. Maybe that's why I didn't want that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, you brought up like stereotypes. Are there any stereotypes about birth in China or birth in Taiwan or birth in the US that you are like, nah, that's just horseshit?
Can you repeat the question? Stereotypes about what?
Stereotypes about like the birth, like what's expected during or anticipated during like the birth process. Was there anything that was like, oh, that's not true, or anything stereotypical that you're like, oh yeah, that definitely happens in Asian culture, or no, that's 100% weird and we would never do that? Like, where do people come up with this shit?
I don't really know, to be honest. Like
Huh.
the actual birthing process, I guess they just do what the doctor tells them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was anything. Just came to me.
Yeah, the birthing process, I can't think of anything really. I mean, I never I never even really was one of those people that like wanted kids, that knew I was going to have a kid. I was going to be okay with my life either way.
Yeah.
I mean, now that I have a kid, obviously, I think different, but yeah, in terms of the culture, Asia, well, it's Shanghai specifically, I saw a lot of mothers hands off. So they
Interesting.
have aides and nannies doing all the work. And then they wonder why, when their kid comes home upset, they go to the help rather than the mother. I mean, it's bizarre, but they don't want to get old and tire easily, so they hand all the work to the. I don't know. I just think don't become a mother if that's your plan. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe I have that opinion to myself, but
This is about your opinions and your experiences, so you say whatever the hell you want. So what was the hardest, if anything, transition for you into motherhood after this birth?
the transition. Well, like I said, everything was all about me. I didn't have to worry about anything else really. And then I became completely selfless. It's
Yeah.
funny because I used to work as a stylist, and I was like young, and I, maybe had a boyfriend, but no kids. And most of my clients were, and many of them I'm still friends with. You didn't, there was no way you could have gotten it. Like, I would say
Yeah.
things like, get rid of the ugly in your closet. Like, don't have them laying around, and, that you're going to be tempted to grab the most comfortable, ugly thing. Just get rid of it. If you don't love it and it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve a purpose, or it doesn't bring you joy. And now that I'm a mom, I mean, for the most part, of course, there's those like shit moms that like, don't care about their kids.
Right.
But for the most part, you become like very selfless, and everything is about the kid, and you completely let yourself go.
Yeah.
And then you lose yourself, you lose your identity. And like, I'm there now, and I'm like, I need to hire a stylist.
Conversations with yourself. Sorry. That'd be great.
It's kind of strange, to have this like full circle experience and to be on the other side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that would be the main thing, the transition into motherhood.
Yeah, I get that too. What about your upbringing? So you spent a lot of time in the US. What did you get from your parents that you hope that you can give to your son?
I feel like I'm going to get very emotional here talking about my parents. But I think my parents, actually, I never spoke to them about this, but I'm assuming they moved to the United States to give us a better life,
Yeah.
more opportunity. Sorry, what was the question?
What
Mommy
did
brain.
your you get from your parents that you hope to give to Luca?
So my parents, I mean, I think we all probably have some sort of trauma, even the best parents with the best intentions, the kid,
Absolutely.
but the thing that I do know deep down, like my parents would have given us anything,
Yeah.
they would, like, even though I didn't go to them, I think in Chinese culture, parent children relationship lack connection. It's more about respect.
Mm-hmm.
So something that I would bring would be to, I don't want to say unconditional love, because I think we're all conditioned sometimes, like we're tired and like we give them the silent treatment, or we set a boundary that's more like a punishment. It's not, it is conditional, but I knew that they were always going to be there.
Yeah.
And now in hindsight, you always want what you don't have. The grass is never greener on the other side.
So true.
Wish that my parents let me suffer more,
Mm, that's a
because
good one.
I feel crippled, I feel like in Chinese, we have a saying, 你不是爱他,你是害他. So I is love.
Mm-hmm.
So when you love a kid so much, and I'm seeing so many podcasts about this, and you save them and you try to
Mm-hmm.
take them out of uncomfortable situations, you're actually doing them an injustice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So,
It's like the helicopter parents on the playground is like my favorite. And I actually had a couple people here in Valencia say, "Oh, you're not like a typical American mom." And I'm like, "No, that kid's got to fall out of the tree a couple times. She's got to break an arm. He's never going to understand." And that resonates a lot with me personally because Declan's dad is very different than me, and he doesn't want anything to go wrong. Doesn't want to be hurt. It's his precious little boy, and it's like, but if he doesn't scrape his knee or fall down, how can he ever learn how to get back up? So I that makes perfect sense. Sometimes you have
but
to suffer.
I want to say that maybe it's necessary that he has the two of you, you
Balance.
know, and that's because I'm the dom.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. It's fine.
necessary to have both, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. I mean, that balance, if you can recognize that in your partner and appreciate that they are different from you and that benefits your child, like that is a good thing. Then he has that overarching like care, that's going to do anything to save him, because most of us would do anything to save our kids. And then someone who's going to be like, "Nah, you guys got caught out. You got in trouble with the cops. You're staying in jail for the night." Hopefully that doesn't happen, because my son will probably be with him. So
You know, question. I have a question for you. Um, Something that came up. So, I mean, consequences when they're kids are much less severe than when you're an adult,
yeah.
right? So, listening to a podcast, something about like, oh, if the kid doesn't do their homework, like, would you be the mom that sits there and like not helps them, but guides them into how they do it? Because I think I've gotten two types of responses. One is like, no, I'm not going to help him with his homework. Like, he needs to do it. And the other
Mm-hmm.
one's like, yes, of course I'm going to help him. And so the natural consequence of not doing your homework is you're going to get in trouble by the teacher, and that's your consequence, and the parent doesn't have to intervene.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you feel like the parents should be there and guide them if they're having?
So that's a question. In general, and things like I do think about stuff like that a lot. So for me, I would ask why. Like, why aren't you doing the homework? Like, do you not understand, or are you just being lazy? Because that's going to kind of dictate my response. If you're just being lazy, it's like, cool, that's your choice. like right now, as you know, Declan goes to a private Montessori school. So if you're just going to piss away that money by not doing the work that you need to do, then you're going to go to a public school where I don't have to pay the money, and then your future is your future.
And you don't have
choice.
homework in Spain.
If he's struggling to understand or whatever it is, then that's a different approach, because then he's
That's a
going
good
to
point.
need support. But yeah, my brother was like that. He just didn't do his homework because he was bored, and he would ace every single test. But he's like,
I hate people like that.
yeah, he's stupid smart. My brother's like he's an incredible human being. But yeah, so it's like, and my dad would say, do your homework. And then at a certain point in time, it's like, it's your life, it's your future. You get to choose, especially as a teenager. You get to choose, and the choice is yours. So yeah. Is there anything that you would like to unlearn that you're about, your childhood, that you would not want to give Luca, because you feel like it could be detrimental, or you found it unuseful now that you're an adult and a mom?
First thing in my mind was the anxiety.
Mm.
And, and this goes back to like nature or nurture. My mom in particular is a very anxious person to be around. Like I get very anxious around her. And my fear is that Luca it's like I'm my mother and Luca me. And it's so hard to break the cycle. Like, you hate this, it doesn't work, it breaks, it causes anxiety, and it causes like the feeling to be perfect. And then you have anxiety. It's that, in the end, it's, Milos has a really good outlook. Like I would always get so anxious, like either if it's go to school or public speaking, or when I had a gig, and he's like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
I could totally bomb. And he's like, and what? And they don't hire you back. Like, did anyone die? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a way to look at it, but it's easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely don't want to pass on the anxiety. But I think other than that, I noticed that because my family and Milos's family are so different, and I often compare. I mean, I know it's not good to compare, and I was speaking to my therapist about this. I wish my parents could be more like Milos's parents, and oftentimes I wish Milos's parents could be more like my parents. They're missing what the other one has, instead of just like my parents are like that and Milos's parents are like that.
Yeah.
And this is where I struggle. But one thing that I noticed with my husband's parents, my in-laws, is that they never pass judgment. I don't know how they do it. Like they really let him make up his own mind, have his own opinions. They don't pass, and even when she's here, and I really cherish that. I'm like, I'm very lucky to get along with my mother-in-law. Whereas my mom, it's like always got an opinion, always giving unsolicited advice. And it's fucking annoying. Now I've started doing this thing where like as soon as she starts to nag or like give advice, I just like hang.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hang up like, oh, the connection, like I just don't say anything. I just like hang up the phone.
Hope
Because I don't want to get annoyed and I don't want to say something nasty to her. And like, I just like hang up. And that's the beauty of like living on different continents.
Yeah, absolutely. But you spent a lot of time in the U.S. when you were younger, and obviously, it's awesome that your parents made it a point to make sure you understood like Chinese. But was there anything about growing up in the U.S. that you really appreciated?
At the time, I mean, it was all I knew, but now, like, if I were to look back in hindsight, I would say, yeah, I mean, America, I think back in the day had great things to offer. And also in comparison with China, I mean, it's not exactly communist, more like, I mean, I guess the US is capitalist too. But like I remember during COVID time in Shanghai, and people were like, because we were locked in our apartments for 2 months, like without even seeing sunlight, and people with animals, pets, had to buy AstroTurf online, and they just had to shit and piss in the house. So I think now, as an adult, looking back in hindsight of my childhood and being in the States, it was very free. I guess that's why people wanted to go to America, why my parents wanted to move to the States. And then they moved to Shanghai when it was booming and it was, the peak of their career, and they got to reap the benefits of that era. But yeah, I would say like all the freedoms, right?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech, like especially in China after the COVID thing, people were pissed about COVID and posting things online, and the government would just shut it down. Like it was crazy. Like, oh, this message is no longer there, and you would see it because I would read the message, and then it would be
Whoa.
deleted like minutes later. It's crazy.
The ultimate gaslighting.
That's insane. If it weren't for COVID, I never want to leave. I loved being in Shanghai at the time.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that transition for you. What prompted your departure from the US and why Shanghai?
Well, my dad was working in IBM at the time, and then I think they were handing out severance like packages to, take the deal and a sum of money and go. And at that time, my dad got an opportunity in Shanghai.
Oh,
And I
nice.
guess they were fairly young then, not even 50. And it was when Shanghai was booming, like literally booming, like all the cranes in the world, like skyscrapers going up. I remember when I first got there, I was 15. I was super pissed with my parents because I had just gotten back from Saratoga from ballet camp. It was a month-long program. And when I came back, like the boxes were all packed and they're like, we're moving to Shanghai in a week. And I'm like,
New York, Shanghai, New York, Shanghai.
that was when I started becoming like a very angsty, rebellious teenager.
Makes sense.
But my dad got a really good job offer. At that time, I think my dad was making like 50 grand a year. Of course, living expenses were much cheaper, but he was raising a family, 2 kids, wife. My mom like worked odd and end jobs upstate New York. But so he got a really good opportunity to move to Shanghai. My brother was going to NYU at the time, so he stayed in New York. And I got to move to Shanghai with my parents as a 15-year-old teenager. I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. And I was studying ballet at the time. That was like my dream, to become a dancer. So I was getting homeschooled and I was dancing pretty much all day. And my mom was like, this is not good for her education, because there was no like American schools. It was just everything was getting developed in those primary years. So that's when I got sent to boarding school. First one was in upstate New York called Oakwood Friends. It was a Mormon school.
Whoa, Jesus.
Yeah, I got kicked out.
I can't imagine you in there.
It was a cool school. I mean, in hindsight, boarding school was cool. Like I met a lot of friends. Yeah, but I think you had another question coming up.
It's okay. You can go down that rabbit hole if you want to.
Yeah, so they thought that my education was going to be, behind. So they did the next best thing that they thought was the best thing for me at the time. And I got sent to boarding school. And so I didn't have a very good connection with my parents. So I was actually very happy to not be with them. But at the same time, I think it's so important to build that connection with your kids when they're young. So they don't want to leave you because I think they actually really do need your guidance. So I was like very fucked up for like, I would say, 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't know usually how like puberty and rebellion lasts, but mine lasted 20 years.
Well into your 30s. Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
Fair. That's a fair point. Send your child to boarding school.
I would have to say no. And because of that, I mean, if I'm going to take that back. If Luca were like with us all through his early years, we had a really good connection and bond. And, it was a chance for him to become more independent. And I trusted that he would thrive in this situation. I would consider like Erasmus or whatever, all the students that travel abroad for a year. I would in those maybe conditions. But in the situation of my parents, I think, I don't know what other option they had, because there was no, I don't think there were international schools at the time in Shanghai. I think like a few years later, like yes, like 1 or 2 years later, yes. But what could they have done? You know,
Right.
it's funny. Things are also kind of making me think about what it must have been like for them. I never thought about it from another perspective before because I'm so egocentric.
So am I. It's fine. That's how we learn.
Like what would have been the other option? My dad, he's supporting the family, got a huge job promotion, making lots more money than he did in New York.
Yeah.
Like her who's suffering in so many ways. What would you have done? You can't leave. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
No, I love it.
like my first thing would be like, oh, maybe I would go somewhere and they could go to school, but then they would be separated from Milosh, and Milosh wouldn't stand for that, I don't think. So yeah, tough situation.
Yeah, it is tricky. I think that's the one thing that helped me sometimes, like, because I mean, you know about me and the relationship I've had with my mom is that becoming a parent, it does force you to think about, oh, they really did the best they could for where they were at. And I couldn't see it then. And it took me a while to, to see certain things, but finding that empathy and knowing that they didn't have certain tools, my mom nor my dad didn't have certain tools to be a better parent or guardian, or, you know, they couldn't give me the advice because they didn't know that that was the advice to give, you know? Um, and just kind of like giving them grace was a gift for me because I was like, oh, maybe they're not as crappy as they were. They really tried, you know, they gave it a good shot. But yeah, I totally hear that. So when you moved to Shanghai, you stayed there for a while. Held you to stay there after you became a mom. Why Shanghai?
No, so the story is a little bit foggy and it's a little bit confusing. So I first moved to Shanghai when I was 15
Okay.
after ballet. My brother was already in NYU. That was when Shanghai was first booming. So I stayed there for not even a year. I was dancing every day. There was dirt roads still. Things were getting built by the hour. And when my mom realized that, so when my mom realized that this was not going to work, she took me back to the States and I
Okay.
went to public school, the high school that I would have went to if I had continued in the States. And then I don't remember what happened. You know, I'm kind of like ad-libbing and making shit up as I go because
Like,
these are conversations I never had with my mom. Like my parents never spoke to me. Like I speak to Luca about everything,
yeah.
probably a little too much. But like, so yeah, I went back to the high school and I'm thinking maybe they're like, okay, my mom can't be in New York with me while my dad's working alone in China. So that was when they had the idea to send me to boarding school.
Oh,
So
I see.
I'm
Okay.
going to school. My brother, who was in New York, was my guardian. He was already, I mean, he's, if I was 16, he's 5.5 years older than me. So he was like 21. And now I'm thinking in hindsight, that's a fucking tall order to be putting on a fucking 21-year-old in college too. My mom went back to Shanghai. I was in boarding school. So the first school, Oakwood Friends, was in Poughkeepsie, got kicked out. Then I went to LaGuardia, you know, where Fame was filmed, and I continued. Sorry, no, it was upstate New York first, my high school. Then it was LaGuardia. Then it was boarding school. In that order, I went to 6 different high schools, so it's kind of hard to keep track.
Like, which one was when?
But I got kicked out of all the schools, all of them. I mean, if that's not a cry for help, you know.
Cause.
I forgot your fucking question. What the fuck was the question?
What to stay in Shanghai once you became a mom?
Oh, so I left Shanghai after I stayed there for not even a year in boarding school and college, pretty much in New York, East Coast, whatever. And then it wasn't until I was 30 that I moved back to China. And by then it was, it was a really cool city, really happening. And the reason why I went back is because I had a fucking crazy old Mexican boyfriend who wouldn't stop leaving me alone. And I didn't live in a fancy doorman elevator building. I lived in a walk-up in Soho shoebox, like for $3,000 a month. And he would just buzz my buzzer at like 3 a.m. I'm like, oh my God, get me here. Called the cops, restraining order. And I'm like, what am I doing in New York? I'm working just to cover my rent, barely. And
yeah,
still supporting me.
yeah, that's exhausting.
It's
so
exhausting.
You're like, peace out, Cub Scout.
I
The
never,
streets of Shanghai.
I don't know, but this time it was my choice.
Yeah.
The first time was against my will, so I was angry. This time it was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
And Shanghai was so cool then. I mean, for the first 6 months, I stayed in my parents' house, but my parents, they made a lot of really great investments. So they had like different apartments. So they were offering me to live in an apartment by myself, rent free in the city center. And after 6 months, I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I found a room with my friend Karen. She works at Disney. And I slowly made really nice friends, partied a lot. Yeah, I was 30, that was like my prime. Partied a lot. Wasn't really working. I was really like just like living la vida loca. I was just like living and not really having any worries and living the life, like Paris Hilton life.
But in Shanghai, so that's rad.
And I won't bore you with the details, but I struggled a bit with work, but then I started my own first, and then I went and got my master's in polymoda for fashion business, and then I started a visionary style. And yeah, it's great. The second time around, I was in Shanghai for 15 years almost. Started my own business, style consulting service, which was pretty much the first when I started it. And then towards the end of our Shanghai term, there were so many stylists and what do they call those? KOLs. I hate that term. KOLs and, bloggers and all this stuff. And really getting saturated. Like China is really so speedy at just catching up with the current trends and copying things. And, there might be a stigma about made in China, but honestly, made in China is not shit anymore. It's not bad.
Some of those damn little plastic toys need to die. Let's be fair.
What plastic toys are you talking
Just like
about?
in general, like, stupid things like this. Like, why? Why? We don't need this crap. Stop. Stop, China. Stop. Anyway, about your journey to Valencia. Why did you and Milos choose to move your family here?
So Milos always hated China. He left Serbia when he was 25, maybe, and he had an internship in Rotterdam. And then they offered him a job in Hong Kong.
Oh.
And he went to this place is amazing. It's so futuristic. But he was just in Hong Kong to meet the team. And then they moved him to Shanghai. He's like, what are these Neanderthals like spitting herb and so rude and talking loud and uncivilized? So Milos has always hated China. And it's funny life, I would have never have expected that I would have married a Serbian and moved to Europe. Like,
right.
But I think we started dating, and I mean, it wasn't like super serious in the beginning. And then when it did become serious, he's like, actually, I think he wanted to move to Valencia before COVID happened. He had taken a trip just to like scout it out. He went by himself. And then COVID happened. So that like kind of put everything behind 2 years. But I think, I hate to say like this cliche, everything happens for a reason. But like if COVID didn't happen, I would have left Shanghai kicking and screaming. Maybe I would have been resentful of my husband for making me leave. And, but because of COVID, I'm like, this is hot place to raise a family, raise a kid. And he suggested Valencia. And so when we fled the lockdown, first we went back to Serbia. We all got COVID. And then we spent a month. Great. We spent a month in Lisbon and a month in Valencia. I really thought it was going to be Lisbon for some reason, simply because the language, and you hear that it's beautiful. Everybody likes Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you have a family, your perspectives change, like the things that you're looking for change. And it just didn't feel right. We were trying so hard to like think of places we would like, and and then when we came to Valencia, it was like, it just felt right. I don't know how to explain it. It felt like,
I get that.
yeah,
Totally.
trees everywhere, palm trees outside our house. It's flat. You can ride the bike. Riding the bike with Luca brings me joy, so much joy. The weather and the Spanish. I mean, Spanish is so much more useful than Portuguese. And if not me, at least Luca will grow up speaking fluent Spanish. Not a bad language to know.
No.
And hopefully Milos can also find a better work-life balance, because in Shanghai, it was really, I think also the profession that he chose. But, people here are like, I mean,
Manana.
Milos will always be a slave to his company. I mean, that's when you have your own,
Yeah.
But I think from what he tells me, in China, it's really hard to find people that you trust and that are capable to run the company. So he basically had no help. He was running everything by himself in a foreign language. Here, I think he says that European, Spain in particular, is very, I mean, like, what's that architect's name? The famous one.
Don't ask me. I'm bad at that stuff.
The famous one.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Segurity. Like, he's got all those buildings. Yeah, I know.
I forgot the name. Anyways, so
I got you.
He's your talent here, and hopefully a partner that can join forces and open a company here, and it's not going to be so stressful. It's not going to be all on him, because honestly, I'm worried that he's young, but he can't continue like he did.
Yeah. Those grueling hours are so draining, for sure. Was it difficult for you guys, because you're a multi-national family? Was it difficult for visas and all of those things? Was that a process?
Surprisingly, no. And again, this is like the what is that? What is that name? Stockholm syndrome. Like when we were going through it, it took us like almost a year, I think, to get the visa. So when we left China, we visited Lisbon, we visited Spain. We decided on Spain and figured out, okay, where do we go from here? Luca and I spent 3 months in New York applying for visas while Milos stayed in Serbia. So we were separated, which was hard, because we promised each other that we were never going to separate after being families separated for like months.
Yeah.
During COVID, but we had to, because Luca and I are U.S. citizens. I mean, apart from the waiting, because we hired a lawyer, I think, which was helpful too. I mean, you could have done it yourself, but I hired a lawyer. He had all the paperwork. He told us what documents to get. So we had a little bit of guidance. And apart from the waiting time, like we waited for our apostle stamp for
Those
like
things.
8 weeks.
So
and it was post-COVID, because pre-COVID, you can get that shit in like 2 hours, I think, 2 days. Like you could have gotten it really in post-COVID, because they had so many backup. Yeah, so we were just in New York, like bleeding money for 4 months. 3,000 a month for fucking daycare, like not even proper school for Luca. So yeah, just the waiting time. And then when we came, we stayed at a really cool apartment in Cabañal.
Yeah.
And then our own apartment, this one that we're in now in Gran Via. We stayed here empty for a month. It was like super echoey, and but now we're all settled, and it's been great. It's really been great.
What's your favorite part about living in Valencia?
I have to say, well, the park. the green, the I think because I might have a little PTSD in Shanghai, you have like these parks that you're not allowed to like go on the it's very bizarre. Like here you have this long ass park that runs through the city. You can camp out whenever you want, wherever you want, have a birthday party, like picnic. And in Shanghai you can't do that. Right. And then you have to spend all this money to like host birthday in this really unnatural like kiddie gym and everything like it was just so here it's the open air, the park, the sea. It's a little city, everything you need. It's not like boring like, countryside, upstate New York. It's lively. You see old people living their life, enjoying it. I mean, why the fuck do you work so hard if you're just like stressed all the time? I mean, the only thing is that it doesn't rain so much, and I worry that it's going to be like California with a lot of fires and stuff. I don't think in Valencia, maybe like outskirts, right?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's a good point. It's something to be mindful of with that. But I don't think traditionally Valencia gets a ton of rain. But I think this year in Spain has been a drought. What's that?
Well, that's why the river was drained, remember? Like it flooded like many years ago.
Yeah. Climate change thing that bothers you or like you find annoying about living in Spain?
I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with Spain. It's more to do with me, being from New York and living in Shanghai for the second quarter of my life. I don't know how long but it's very fast paced. I don't have to leave my apartment. I can get everything delivered. Everything's fast. We lived in, a building where if something went wrong, someone could come and fix it immediately. Convenient, but there's a price to pay, right? So I guess here is like the speed of things. I mean, I don't know firsthand but what I hear from everybody, like if you buy a plot of land and you want to build, you have to get all these permissions and everything. We're not there yet, but I hear like admin stuff is really slow. But the language, the communication, but again, it's not like Valencia's fault. I just have to learn Spanish. But I often want to be able to have small talk with my neighborhood coffee shop or, and those things I miss not being able to speak English as much as in like the other major cities, Barcelona, Madrid, Mallorca. And hopefully the expat friends that I've made aren't like transient like Shanghai because they all left in the end, which sucks. But, that's why we've enlisted Luca in public school. So he's going to grow up with these kids. He's going to be part of the community. He's going to be a Chinese, Spanish, Serbian.
What opportunities has the lifestyle of Spain afforded your family, and why is that important to you?
Opportunities. I don't know. What do you mean by opportunities?
I mean,
slower pace.
Yeah, like just the Spanish culture in general. Like, what do you appreciate about it, and why?
What I appreciate, the slower pace, definitely, because like I said, New York, Shanghai, it's always go, 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 especially in work. It's very cutthroat.
Yeah.
It's very, how do you say, when there's a lot of, my gosh, my Spanish hasn't improved and my English is like super dumbed down.
I don't think so.
There's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
I really love the lower buildings. It's a feeling. I think that's why.
Me too.
I feel like not tight here, in Shanghai, New York. I don't think I ever saw the sunset. Like you see it from behind a building, thing, but here I can see the sun. I saw stars at the beach, and that I'm able to share that with Luke. This star. I don't think I saw stars or sunset or sunrise all so many years. It's like the little things, that you don't realize has such an impact in your well-being.
Yeah, it's so true. Being able to just ride a bike 20 minutes and put your feet in the sand, that's awesome. Because you're getting the vitamin D from the sun, endorphins from riding your bike, the grounding. Yeah, I get that. Totally. It's the best. Do you have any advice or insight for families who are thinking about moving abroad?
well, I mean, if you're not happy where you're at, then do something about it, right? Because I think, so many, especially Americans, I don't know about the rest of the world, but they're like stuck in a rut.
Mm.
Like I don't think he can ever leave New York. Like he is just in that machine where he has to work like a slave just to afford like the school and the after school activities and the nanny and this and that. I mean, I think, well, they were going to move to Long Island, but my brother got cancer and he had to be close to the hospital. But they're
Ooh.
just in this machine, and then they're stressed, and then it goes to the kids, and it.
Yeah. I could ask a million questions about that, because it's like, was the lifestyle causing the cancer? Is the stress aggravating it? The anxiety of it all? Like, it's just compounded, really, I think, personally, just from observing
It
other
was
people. What's that?
I think it was 9/11 actually, because my brother and a couple other guys, they sued the state. They all had to go back to work in ground zero, and they were like breathing all that shit in for like months.
Damn.
And they all.
Yeah, absolutely. Fucking out. Is there any other?
You come in the morning, you work for an hour, and then you're like, adios, I'm going out for breakfast. You come back 2 hours later, you work for another hour, like, bye, I gotta go for lunch now.
Oh my God. My favorite thing is like, because I'll run home from taking Declan to camp or something, or I'll just be out walking the dog like 9 o'clock on a whatever morning. And you'll see people out there with their bottles of wine and their beers. And I'm like,
this is my place. These are my people.
I mean, I do have boundaries on when I consume alcohol. But it's just like,
I mean, if you have young kids and you're up at like 5, 6, 10 o'clock is basically noon, so it's perfectly fine.
Absolutely. For fun, is there any other nada you'd like to share about motherhood and expat lifestyle?
I can't think of anything else really. I really enjoyed all your questions, and thank you for having me here.
I love it.
And you actually got me thinking about, this relationship with my parents, which was kind of unexpected and cool.
Aw, well, I hope that's a good thing.
It is a good thing for sure to reflect on things that, yeah,
I hear you. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think that's sometimes it's really hard to turn off our own blind spots, because of the way we've internalized and interpreted things. The intention and the perception are often very different. But then after years of marinating and stewing on those intentions, and those perceptions that we've even maybe cultivated a bit in our own minds, you're like, oh, maybe I was not right about that. Or I never even thought about it that way.
And you got to do it before it's too late.
Sure.
My parents, they're like, my dad's 80. My mom's 4 years younger. I'm still working on it.
Hey, poco a poco, mamacita. Pasa, pasita, pasita. Anyway, I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna. This has been Rui. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll catch you next time.